Good evening, everybody. I see you coming into the waiting room there. If you just bear with us, we'll let a few more come in before we make a start. Okay. Okay, and I see people are still coming in. So you're all very welcome to Arthritis Ireland's Women in Arthritis webinar series. And this is our final night. So you're very, very welcome. And my name is Martina Blake. I'm the Services Manager with Arthritis Ireland. This evening, I have Tara Regan, our Comms and Advocacy Manager with us, and we're very delighted to welcome Úna Martin, who is our guest speaker for tonight. So you're in for a real treat this evening. And so just to remind you of a few things before we actually start, I'll do the housekeeping bit, just to keep everybody right. That's my job, is keep everybody right. So my job is just to welcome you all here and just to remind you of a couple of things in terms of housekeeping. Well, really nice and simple for you is just take a nice space at home and make yourselves comfortable, whether you're out for a walk or in the garden or in the kitchen, wherever you are. There's no cameras on and there's no mics on for you. So it's your time just to relax and listen and really hopefully get something from the webinar this evening. And if you have any questions, which hopefully you do, you can pop them into the Q&A, which is at the bottom of your screen. If you move around your cursor, it'll come up for you. So type away in there or type into the chat function, whatever works for you. We've allocated roughly about 15 minutes for our Q&A at the end, and we will respond to as many questions as possible. And if we don't get around everybody, or if you don't want to submit a question on the webinar, you can always contact Arthritis Ireland directly whenever suits, okay? So just a little bit about us, and I'm sure if you've been on the webinar series already, you may have heard this, but if you're new this evening, you're very welcome. And just to remind you who we are, so we're the national organisation for people that live with arthritis in Ireland. And, you know, as a patient organisation, we are involved in all things arthritis, and we deliver a number of services in terms of support, training, education and information. And, you know, to really get into the information side of things and check out what we do, what we offer, how to sign up for courses, check us out on our website on arthritisireland.ie, and we're on all the social medias. We're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and X. So if you want, you know, to follow and track what we're doing, log away. And we also have a range of information booklets on your various types of arthritis. We deliver a range of self-management programs. And if you're out for a walk or out in the garden or whatever, we have a range of podcasts you can tune into. We also have a series of recordings and videos with clinicians. And we have our newsletter and our blog series as well, which people find really informative. And, you know, really what's really important, you know, to keep track of what we're up to and to sign in and sign up for things. Sign up for our newsletter. It's on the website, and it's probably the easiest way to get right up to information, you know, right up to date information on what's happening. And, you know, for anybody that wants to chat or, you know, link into a bit of support, we have a national helpline, which is free, and that's open Monday to Friday from 10 to 4, and that's a number there as well. And it's always good to get a chat and have a good rant if you have to, or find out something, or if you have any burning questions. So this evening, as a fortunate to have Úna Martin as our guest speaker. And Úna is an Advanced Nurse Practitioner in the Rheumatology Department of the University Hospital in Waterford. And Úna is probably one of our most experienced rheumatology nurses in the country, and has a master's in clinical practice and a diploma in positive health. And, you know, to say we're person-centered with Úna is really underselling the person-centered approach. And, you know, Úna's real focus and real passion is in lifestyle medicine. And I suppose for those of you that may not know what lifestyle medicine is, well, hopefully you'll find out this evening with Úna that can walk you through exactly what that means, what it, you know, what it involves for us to get involved with, you know, and adapting a healthy lifestyle and taking on the changes. And Úna is also involved in the education and bursary officer for the Irish Rheumatology Nursing Forum, and as the chair of the Hospital Nurse and Midwifery Forum as well. And so, like, we were in really good hands this evening with the special interest in arthritis and in women and in self-management. So for anybody that is just tuning in this evening, this is our fourth part, our final part of the webinar series. So there was 3 other parts. So for anybody that hasn't seen them, you can go back onto our website and onto our YouTube channels or on the learning page of our website, and you can find the webinars there and, you know, have a good listen to see what's happening and, you know, get informed and find out, you know, what it involves and what we were talking about. And as always, without sponsorship and funding, we wouldn't be delivering very much. So it's really important for us to thank our sponsor, UCB. And again, just to remind you of our website address and our helpline number. And for those of you that are into technology or Facebook or whatever, we actually have a huge Facebook forum. And it's the Arthritis Ireland support group on Facebook. And it's confidential. It's well monitored as well, so that, you know, it's a safe space to ask questions and share information and you know, share experiences with other people and, you know, find out how they're doing as well. So a lot of people, several thousand people, find it a real support. So, you know, at any stage, sign up for that as well. So that's all from me. I'll stop sharing. Okay. And all that's left for me to do is just thank you all for joining us this evening. And I hope you enjoy the webinar, and we will have time for questions after. And I'll just hand you over to Una, who's going to share her presentation with us this evening. Okay.
Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us this evening to talk about all things lifestyle medicine and self-management. But more importantly, before we get started, I want to congratulate you yourself for taking the time out this evening to put your own health on the agenda, and something that's often very difficult for women to do. So hopefully after, you know, the next 45 minutes or so, you'll be able to take away a few nuggets of information to make some changes that will help you support and adopt a healthy lifestyle while living with arthritis. So let's talk a little bit about what lifestyle medicine is, and so that you get a better understanding of it. It's not necessarily a new approach to health, but it sits along other types of medicine, and it was founded initially in America and then has grown bigger in Britain, and now we're starting to gain momentum here in Ireland. And the Irish Society of Lifestyle Medicine exists in Ireland, and it supports memberships of primarily GP practitioners, but other practitioners like dietitians, physiotherapists, and nursing. So it's a profession and a specialty that's growing both nationally and globally. But probably the most important thing about lifestyle medicine is it's a type of medicine that has a potential to focus primarily on prevention, treatment, but in some cases it can reverse ill health, in particular chronic illnesses like type 2 diabetes. But one of the things that attracts me most to it is it's what we call very patient-centered. So when you practice lifestyle medicine, what's really important and fundamental about it is the patient is at the center. You set the goals about what the patient wants to do, and what really is relevant and important to that person. So it has a place alongside conventional medicine, as well as every other type of medicine that we practice today. But it sits very nicely with it. What it isn't complementary medicine or alternative medicine. And the other thing to emphasize that it's an evidence-based type of medicine. So so when we talk about making changes to our lifestyle, often getting started is the hardest bit. And particularly when we live in such a busy world where we seem to be constantly, as women, living such demanding lives and always accountable for what we're doing and where our time is going. And there's no time like the present, no matter how old you are or where you are in your life chapter at this point in time, to put our health on the map, as our health is our most important asset. So I just want to talk a little bit about setting goals and why they are important. And as I said, you know, here are a couple of really good reasons to set goals. The list here, we can go down through them, but you can read them there yourself. And just as I always say to patients when I encounter them in clinic, when we think about our health, we don't often place the same sort of emphasis on something like we do, like the maintenance of our car or the maintenance of our home. But it's equally important to have a regular action plan for your health, but be particularly important for people living with arthritis, and particularly for women who are juggling lots of other different roles and other challenges around their health throughout their life course as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we might think about doing that. And I'm just going to briefly mention two types of techniques. There are lots of ways to set goals, but one of the more common ways that you might be familiar with is a technique called SMART, where you pick something specific. So say for something you're going to start walking, measurable, and it might be something that you're going to do 3 days a week. Make sure whatever you pick is going to be achievable. So don't pick something that you think, okay, I'm going to start walking and I'm going to walk 7 days a week for an hour every day. And if that's not really realistic or, more important, relevant to you, then that probably won't help you achieve your goal. And then always put a time on it. So if you're going to say you're going to do it 3 days a week and you're going to try that for 3 weeks, and then you're going to maybe set a review date. So that's just a simple way to kind of get started with a goal. The other technique that I particularly like is called habit stacking. And it's basically a process of stacking a new behavior that you want to develop, and you stack it onto something that's already part of your normal routine. So for all those people out there who might make lunches, either for their husband or their children, and then they say, oh, I haven't got time to make my own lunch. But it's just as easy when you're making other people's lunches to get out your lunchbox and make your own lunch and stack it into that habit. That's one of the examples used, because often when people will say to me, oh, I don't get time for my lunch because so just maybe think about how you could stack a habit. Another useful example is if you're standing brushing your teeth, you might do your exercises while might do some squats while you're standing brushing your teeth in the morning, and you just stack it onto that. And as soon as before you know it, it starts to bed in and you don't even think about it because it just becomes a habit. Now, it is important to acknowledge that making habit changes do take a while. And sometimes you don't always see the benefit from them straight away. Same way as you've said, any goals, it takes a little while for them to bed in. So I want to talk about what we refer to in lifestyle medicine as the 6 pillars of lifestyle health. And there are 6 days in our everyday life that we refer to as the pillars in lifestyle medicine. And what we're going to do this evening is we're going to talk through them on an individual basis. And they include exercise, diet and nutrition, sleep, purpose and connection, stress, and risky substances. And they're all part of everyday life. But for us who are in particular, when you're living with arthritis, it's really more important to try and focus on them. And what I'm also going to try and do when I talk about each of the pillars, I will signpost you to resources to help you make decisions around your health. So if you decide after today that you're going to make 1 or 2 changes around 1 or 2 pillars, you don't go and make changes blindly, or you go into, well, we see it all the time, patients go into Google. You get the adequate resources that can help you make those decisions about changing your health, so that you feel you can do that in a very supportive way. So I'm going to start with movement and exercise, which is probably the most important pillar. And my really feeling is that this pillar feeds into so many of the other 6 pillars, or 5 pillars rather. And often the word exercise, it immediately puts people off. So I use the word movement as well, because it doesn't have to be as specific as something like weightlifting 3 days a week or going to the gym 3 days a week, but any movement is important. And for patients living with arthritis, movement and exercise is so, so important for the joints. So here is a list of advantages that we would use to describe the importance of exercise. When we go down through them, you can see things like it can help your physical health, like your cardiovascular health, your sleep. It helps maintain our weight. In a busy world that us ladies live in, it often gives us an opportunity to connect with others, particularly if you pick an exercise or a movement that you enjoy and maybe has interaction with other people. You might be the kind of person who likes to exercise on their own, and that's perfectly fine too. It's important for women to have support for their bone health. In our younger years, it's important for our pelvic health, particularly in pregnancy and in later life. It gives us an opportunity to have some space and time to do what's important to you. So if you have a hobby that's involved in exercise and movement, and as a woman you find that hard to fit it in, make the time, because it'll be worth it for so many of these reasons. It strengthens our muscles, which are very important for arthritis. It offers pain relief. You know, years, 30, 40 years ago, when people first got diagnosed with arthritis, we encouraged them not to move, but that's totally contraindicated. Now we actually advise people to move. It improves our circulation, it improves our mood, it keeps us independent as we get older, and helps to maintain our functional ability. So there's a whole raft of advantages just to even think about getting started with. My motto is, you know, when we ask patients to fill out their questionnaires about how movement they're doing and what they're doing, sometimes people are doing very little movement, and that's okay. And my motto is any movement is better than no movement. But the guidelines are telling us that we should aim for 30 minutes a day, 5 days per week. And that doesn't have to be that 30 minutes all in one go. If it suits you to do 10 in the morning, afternoon, evening, whatever way, if you're the kind of person that likes to do their 30 minutes and have it done, that's okay. But you should be looking for 150 minutes of it's actually about, you know, a brisk walk. That would be a walk of 15 to 20 minutes per day. Important to also build on your strengths, so performing strength and balance activities, and that can be something where you're out in the garden and doing some lifting. It could be that you're out playing with your grandchildren, whatever it is, because strength and balance are really important, particularly as we age. There's no not enough emphasis that we should be trying to encourage people to try and sit. So if you're sitting this evening, do feel free to stand up. We should be standing up every 20 minutes. If you're an office worker and your job is quite sedentary, stack that into a habit that you stand up every 20 minutes, and maybe when you've done, you know, a couple of emails or whatever way that works for you. You know, they say for us to be aiming for about 10,000 steps. If you're nowhere near that, that's okay too. Start low and go slow and build up. If you can get up to about 10,000 steps, you'll get more benefit, but it's not the end of the world if you don't. Here's a couple of tips about how to get started. So there's no point in, if you want to start making changes to get incorporate exercise, build from where you are now. You know, don't start being over ambitious, because then you'll get frustrated. Or if you haven't done any walking, or if you haven't done any exercise, start low and go slow. Build it into every part of your everyday life. Make sure you stretch and warm up before you get going. Do something that you really enjoy. So if it's dancing, if it's swimming, if it's cold water swimming, build your strength. And there's no time like the present time to get started. Today is often the best time to start. And as I say, start small and build it up nice and gradually. These are some resources that you can explore later around exercise and movement. And as you can see, Arthritis Ireland has some exercises there and physical activity signpost, and you can refer to that as well. So there's plenty of exercise, and always if you're not sure, check with your GP before starting exercise. And if you are going to see a physiotherapist, make sure the physiotherapist is a chartered physiotherapist, and you can check out their registration details on ISCP, which is the Institute of Chartered Physiotherapists. One of the probably most hot topics or favorite topics when it comes to arthritis is diet and nutrition. And it's a subject that comes up very frequently with patients in clinic. And I'm sure you've thought about it a lot yourself. It's not only relevant to people with arthritis, but it's very relevant to our everyday life and diet. And our Western world diet now is having a huge influence, not just on our arthritis, but on the risk of developing non-communicable diseases. And these are diseases that are caused by our lifestyle. And these are things like type 2 diabetes and heart disease. So be very mindful of what we're eating. So let's look at some of the fundamentals. And these, I would say, are just the basics, because often people will say to me in clinic, what should I be eating? What supplements should I be eating? So here's a couple of tips. Be a healthy weight and be your best weight. What the weight for your person is different from the next person. Use your food pyramid. There is some very nice evidence now, and it's evolving and emerging, that the Mediterranean style diet, but not only the Mediterranean style diet, the Mediterranean lifestyle is also helps our general health as well. Include things like omega-3 and fish oils. Look after your bone health. Be careful about excluding things like dairy and calcium, because they're very important for our bone health. And if you're not sure, check this with your GP. You can boost your immune system through your health. It doesn't mean you have to take a supplement. Just look at what you're eating. Look at your plate every time you have something on your plate. The less color in your plate, the more unhealthy it is for you. And also, if you look when you go to do your food shopping, look at what you pick up. Turn the packet over, look at your traffic signs, and look at the amount of ingredients. Any more than 3 or 4 ingredients, it probably isn't a very healthy thing to eat for us. And the other thing I want to say is hydrate yourself. Often people just think, oh, yeah, I'm eating really well, I'm eating really well, but very important to have lots of water, 2 liters if you can a day. Avoid things like sugary or sweetened drinks and energy drinks. They give us false energy and our sugar levels come crashing down afterwards. And we'll come on to alcohol in a little bit as well. So if you want to make some changes around your diet and want to get started on it, I often say to the patients, now pardon the pun, do a stock take. To have a look what's in your cupboard and fridge and see what's in there and think what looks healthy and what doesn't look so healthy. Is there a lot of processed stuff? Have you got a lot of fruit and veg? Great. When you have a bad time with your arthritis, or you're having a flare, or you're busy, or you're under a lot of demands, maybe do some batch cooking in advance so that when you get home from work or have been run around with children or whatever, you don't reach for the convenience food and you have something healthy that you can just take out of the freezer that you might have made in advance. Everybody should have some sort of sports bottle no matter where they go, so they've no excuse not to have their water. Put it up on your desk, and again, have it stack it. When you're filling your lunchbox, fill your water bottle. When you're getting into the car, fill your water bottle. When you're getting into your car, fill your car with a few snacks that are healthy, like a couple of nuts, seeds, things like that. Look for your triggers for snacking. In the evening time, winter time is hard. Is it coming from boredom? Is it coming from tiredness? Is it pain? If it's something like that, think about what else you can do to divert yourself from snacking unhealthily. We've mentioned making your lunch in advance. Try swap out your sugary snacks for fruits and drinks, for fruit, nuts or fruit, and have them in your bag or car. Don't go shopping when you're tired. It's the world's worst thing. Any of us women know that. Or don't go shopping when you have, 2 or 3 children, driving your cuckoo around the supermarket, because you'll buy all the wrong things, and when you get home, you have nothing healthy in the trolley, or when you're in pain. And sometimes people always say to me, "Oh, I don't like X fruit, X veg, or I don't like X fruit," and it could be 30 years since they last tasted it. And I say to people, why don't you try it again? There's nothing to be lost by it. And, often people say, oh, I have to cook a different dinner for everybody. They don't eat that. But if you're going to be a good role model for your children, if they see that you're going to have different things and be a little bit more adventurous with your palate, they'll probably follow suit with you. Just there's a couple of life stages, and I know this has been mentioned in some of the other webinars previously, that are important for women, particularly during and after pregnancy, breastfeeding, and I think Louise mentioned those the last day, polycystic ovary syndrome, menopause, and aging. So there are some stages in our life, not necessarily related to arthritis, but are very important to pay attention to your diet and nutrition at those points. There's a list here of nutritional supports, but what I do want to mention is, in particular, is the Arthritis Ireland, and I've put it here for you, is the Arthritis Ireland webinar done by Louise Reynolds, who's a certified and qualified dietitian. She's actually head of INDI, and I would strongly encourage you because she has a lot of information, specifics about diet, and she might dispel some of the myths around it as well. And you can go into it a little bit more detail. So the next thing I want to move on to is stress. And this can affect any of us. It doesn't have to be related to our arthritis, but we have to acknowledge that living with a chronic disease like arthritis can cause more stress and can be a bit more of a challenge. And it can happen at any stage of our life, whether we're young, middle-aged, or getting a little bit older. And it's very, you know, understandable and reasonable to feel stressed as a woman in this day and age. So, um, when we encounter stress, it's not just something that affects our mind, it can affect us both physically, so it can display itself by physical symptoms, emotionally, or mentally. And particularly when people get arthritis and women get arthritis in the beginning, you know, we start to have to maybe change some of our roles, our relationships, things like our work, our finances. We have to make considerations around pregnancy, children, looking after grandchildren, things like roles like that as well. Um, they all come into play, and that can cause us some stress. So it can affect us at any stage of living with arthritis. But what's really, really important is number one, is to recognize your stress and say it's okay to be stressed. And secondly, to manage your stress. So recognizing that you're stressed is the first most important thing. Just pay that little bit of attention to your body. Other people might say to you, you know, are you holding yourself more tense? Have you got more pain? And automatically you might assume that it's coming from your arthritis, but it may be that you're just stressed and holding that body in a very tense way, which will cause your muscles to be tense and more painful. How's your sleep? How's your mood? How's your relationships, not just at home, but with your wider family and your work colleagues? Once you do feel that little bit stressed, give yourself permission to acknowledge that you are feeling stressed. It's okay. Take some time out, you know, whether it's a half an hour, whatever you need. Make sure to talk to your family, stay connected, look at ways to unwind, keep moving. Even though it might be hard and you may not be motivated because you feel stressed, the movement will really help your mood. Take time for your hobbies. And one of the things I love is a thing called flow. So flow is where you have a hobby, and mine is gardening, where you become totally immersed in it. And no matter what's going on around you, you let all, it seems your mind will just take over the task, not task, the enjoyment that you're doing. It could be a good book. It could be a bridge club, anything, where suddenly all that stress that you've felt in your body and your mind just literally flows away because you're in the flow of something that really gives you pleasure in life. Take a break from technology and focus on, well, at the end of the day, what's gone well rather than the things that have been a struggle. And they're just some general tips. This is some resources for stress. And again, refer to Arthritis Ireland, and they did a lovely webinar there a couple of months ago, weeks ago maybe, around connection and stress as well. So I would recommend that. And also, if you want to look at more technology, the Headspace app is one of the really good apps that I would recommend. It helps with sleep, stress, and connection as well. And of course, the Arthritis Ireland helpline. The next pillar I want to move on to is sleep and rest. Um, why is it important? And it can be particularly challenging for women. It's necessary, it's vital biological function. It not just only supports our physical health, but our emotional health. And really, when we don't have enough sleep, it can have a really big impact on how we function. And a good example of that is when at the moment there's lots of students out there studying for Leaving Cert and they might not be sleeping well. That can start to take a toll on on your physical health. We cannot underestimate the importance of a really good night's sleep. It helps improve your arthritis systems, and it gives your mind and your body time to rejuvenate, re-energize, and restore. It's important to acknowledge that there are times in our life as women when we have challenges with sleep, and that can be during pregnancy, children when they're young, in particular when they go through the whole phase of, you know, teething, viral infections. We all are familiar with that. And then, of course, we have another challenge with sleep again when we face into the menopause. So it's important. And sometimes we're trying to figure out, what is the cause of our sleep? Is the sleep coming from my arthritis, or is it just challenges in normal day-to-day life? Sleep is essential for people with arthritis. It's really important. And when we look at pain in particular, a lack of sleep can really affect our sensitivity of pain, and it can make your arthritis symptoms feel worse. It's particularly pain and and stiffness. So that's why it's really important to try and prioritize your sleep. And some of you out there tonight, that may be one of the pillars that you choose to emphasize and focus on. When we go to sleep, it's a really important time for our bodies and our minds and our tissues to repair, and particularly our tissues that are affected by inflammation. So it's really important that we get good quality of sleep. It's a bit like, I suppose, shutting everything down so we can reboot ourselves and ready for the next day. But particularly around our tissues and our muscle function and things like that, it will really help with our arthritis. Good sleep helps with our energy and mobility. We all know that. So if we don't have a good night's sleep, we don't have the energy and the mojo for work the next day, not only just our physical, but our mental stamina. And that then can start to affect things like our engagement with life and our physical activity. And sleep is important for mood and mental health. Um, we know that mental health can be affected as normal stressors. And there are lots of roles, as I've mentioned earlier, that women have to juggle. So good quality sleep is really vital for our emotional well-being. And it helps regulate our mood and also helps if we're having challenges with our mental health. And I think it's very important if you really are struggling with your sleep to talk to your GP as well. Sleep hygiene. I'm not really great lover of the word sleep hygiene, but anyway, basically what it fundamentally means is good sleeping habits. Um, and some of us are great sleepers, some of us have great sleep routines, some of us are night owls, some of us are morning larks. So we have to adjust that to ourselves as individuals. But a routine and a good routine is really important. And often people say, oh, I'd love a lie in, but actually you're better off just sticking to the same routine, going to bed the same time and getting up the same time. Your environment is important. So you don't want your room too hot, too cold, things like that, simple things like that. Good sleeping habits, wind yourself down and don't start, putting on Netflix, series that are full of, violence or whatever just before you go to bed. Maybe have your bath, your book, things like that, your music. Avoid anything like blue screens in your bedroom. Put your phone away, turn off your technology well in advance. You know, people still bring their phones into their bedroom because they need them for alarms, but there's nothing as straightforward as a simple alarm clock if you're not worried, because it'll always tempt you to pick up the phone. And then as soon as you put that phone, it'll stimulate your brain as well. And really important is to stay active as well throughout the day, because that will help with your sleep. So again, these are some resources for sleep, and I particularly like the Sleep Foundation there, and it's got lots of information about even things like your mattress, your pillow, your duvet, and all the kind of things that we've talked about around routine as well. The next pillar I want to talk about is relationships and connections. Um, More importantly, I would have to say than ever, it's really important to have good, solid family relationships, friendships, work colleagues, connections when you're living with arthritis, because having a good support network around you helps you um, overall manage your arthritis. And there is a lot of research now that tells us that connecting with people who we love and who we want to spend time with really supports our overall health and well-being. And we know that loneliness can have a big impact on our health. So if you have good friends, good connections, good family, it really is worth investing in them. But before we invest in other people, I think what's really important, and I would say we're not good at this as women, is connecting with ourselves. Um, because when we think about it, our relationships with others is a direct reflection of the relationship with our friends, with ourselves rather. So if you have a good connection with yourselves, you tend to have a good connection with other people. Now, that doesn't mean to say you have to be out, socializing every 5 minutes and meeting there and running here and running there. But sometimes people are introverts, some people are extroverts, sometimes people like to spend a lot of time with people, sometimes people have said limited time. But spending time alone is important. And sometimes this can be a real challenge as a woman. There's very little space in a day where we probably spend time as on our own, but it's okay to do that. Listen to your own inner voice, not the gremlin on our shoulder telling us not that we feel guilty if we spend time on our own or we do things for ourselves, but listen to your inner voice, your own self-regard, and our acceptance of our strengths and challenges. Um, pay attention to your thoughts in a mindful way can help us keep us more balanced and compassionate and help us stay connected to those who are important. And it's perfectly reasonable, and that's why you're here tonight, which is great. It's perfectly reasonable to prioritize your own health and put on your own life jacket before you see to others. Because if you don't fill up your own cup and prioritize your own health, it's very hard to keep giving to other people. And then if you've got the demands of living with arthritis on top of that, it becomes very difficult. So really important. And nobody should feel guilty as a woman to connect with ourselves. Relationships. Um, Relationships, and why is it important to have good relationships? Well, relationships can offer us so much. They are good in times and good times, they're good in bad times, but particularly when you have, and everybody knows, and women, we all have that. Women are very good at chatting and having great relationships. We know the people we can talk to about some things and some people we wouldn't talk to about other things. It gives us a sense of belonging, and it helps us support. So if we're going to make changes around our lifestyle, sometimes, if you have a friend says, "Oh, come on, we'll only go for a walk, but we'll see how we go," and that could help you support you in your maintaining a healthy lifestyle. Um, it helps us feel less lonely and isolated. And sometimes, you might go through a phase, either at the beginning or further into your arthritis, you might go through a phase where you say, "Oh, I'm not going to meet her anymore because she'll just be able to do this and I won't be able to do that." I think it's really important to educate people about the arthritis so that they understand and that you don't feel lonely, isolated. And of course, we wouldn't be without our family and friends for practical things. And that's really important for things like childcare, transport, getting to our hospital appointments. So it's worth investing in your friendships and your relationships. Um, they don't always happen, sometimes we have to work a little bit harder on them. So it's very important to have open communication, particularly with maybe our spouse or our partner. And they're not going to know how we're feeling if we don't tell them. And sometimes we'll go, "How are you doing?" "Yeah, I'm grand." It's a great expression of most women. "I'm fine, I'm grand," but probably we're not grand at all. And then we might get frustrated and then there's a tension. So it's really important to connect and tell people how we're feeling. And relationships do need a little bit of investment. Be open about your arthritis and they'll be able to support you better if you tell them how you're feeling. Visit people or invite them over. Participate in social activities. Maybe you can't do the social activity that you like to do as well as you used to, but you'll still get the buzz off meeting people. Take up a new hobby, things like that. Make connections, seek out support. But what's important as well, when you're having a good day, give back that support to somebody, and that will help maintain your friendship and your relationship as well. I put up Healthy Wexford, but if you go into your county and put in Healthy Ireland and put in your county, you will find an absolute sea of resources to support people through all those pillars that I've mentioned earlier with their health. There is an amazing amount of work going on in people's communities. And the other really good place to go is your library. And you'll find loads of activities, not just from a library perspective, but from a cultural perspective or activities that might suit you. So really important. There's a vast array and there's more than ever support in your community to be a healthy community. So do engage with them. And the other good thing is volunteer, and that's often a good thing if it's at the right time for you as well. And these are some resources that I've just put in around purpose and connection. There's a new word that you may not be familiar. It's called social prescribing. It's where you might have repeated visits to your GP and you're not really sure why you're how and what way you're feeling, but your GP might prescribe you to some or refer you to somebody called a social prescriber, and they will help get you started in connecting with your community. Um, Our last pillar is smoking, vaping, and alcohol and technology. Um, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about smoking. So for those of us who smoke or do smoke, one of the best things that you can do for your health, you don't have to have arthritis, is not to smoke. And we know why. Um, Here are some reasons why, particularly around arthritis, why it's important not to smoke. It increases inflammation, it reduces your blood flow, weakens your bones. It can really interfere with medication, and medication choices are often a little bit more limited because when you smoke, it can limit treatment choices because it can put you at higher risk of things like infection. And smoking in particular in things like pregnancy and during and the menopause. But what I do want to say is there is a lot of support now to help people to quit smoking. Um, but nobody should ever feel they've been forced to quit smoking. The one thing that I would say is it has to come from the person themselves and when you're ready to do it. And I would say strongly encourage people to contact the National Smokers Quit Line, which the details are there from. So don't let anybody tell you that you should stop smoking. And no health professional should be using that language now. It's up to the individual. And then what we do is support you on that journey. Alcohol, it has it's another potential effect on arthritis. It can cause inflammation. It can interact with certain medications, and particularly things like methotrexate. I'm sure some of you may be familiar with. Um, and again, it can cause interactions with things like anti-inflammatories as well. It can make us dehydrated. It can cause weight gain. It can interfere with our bone health. And for women, as I stressed earlier under some of the other pillars, bone health is very important. So that's just a guide. As women, we should be having no more than 11 standard drinks. And if you're not sure what you're doing and you're concerned about, a very good website is Drink Aware. And there's an app as well that you can just tune into, because sometimes a lot of us may drink from home now and we have different measures. So just to bring that to your attention there. Technology and phone use. I know you might think that's not a risky substance, but I did feel very strongly about putting it in. Um, it's not good. The way we're living now, it promotes sedentary behavior. As I mentioned earlier, it can affect our sleep. We can spend endless hours scrolling or doom scrolling, as it's referred to, and that can affect our mental health. It can affect our social relationships, and it can also cause us to have addictive behaviors like shopping. Some of us will well be able to recognize if we've had a bad day when we've gone and scrolled on something like Shein for half an hour, and the next thing you think, oh my God, there's an hour and I've just scrolled through that. Not saying that that's addictive, but sometimes you can kind of mindlessly do these things and really you don't achieve anything with it. So use your phone in a more smarter way when it comes to your health. Um, Program your phone for daily time, certain apps. Use notifications to encourage you to use healthy apps. Connect with your families. That nowadays people have WhatsApp groups for this and WhatsApp groups that. So use hide and choose which groups you want to. You can silence groups, things like that. Put your phone into sleep mode, allowing you time to focus on what's really important. As I said earlier, that connection, that sitting down and having the time with your family or friends. And that's just some supports around that pillar. So just to talk a little bit as we're coming to the end, reflect on your achievements. And I use this ACE checklist. Um, so ask yourself, what did you achieve today? It doesn't have to be anything big. If it was the fact that you didn't have, biscuits every time you had a cup of tea, great, fabulous, wonderful. If it's the fact that instead of sitting on your phone for your lunch hour today, you got up and you did a lap around the building at work, fabulous. That was an achievement. What did you do and who did you connect with? Did you reach out? Did you talk to people? Did you pick up the phone to somebody you hadn't spoken to for a while? and what did you enjoy? Focus on the little things, because the little things can make a big difference. But do acknowledge that having and maintaining a healthy lifestyle with arthritis can be difficult, and it can disrupt things, particularly when we get things like pain. It can cause interference with things like when we have physical restrictions and fatigue. We talked a lot about fatigue, and sleep disturbance. So sometimes, things won't go according to plan. But as I always say to patients is, from every setback, there's always a comeback. So don't be too hard on yourself, and just reflect on the things that went well rather than the things that didn't go so well and were a little bit more of a challenge. So thinking about getting started then, considering where you might look for some support, you might think about seriously undertaking the Living Well with Arthritis program that's run through Arthritis Ireland. This covers very similar content that we've covered tonight, and it's a fantastic evidence-based program that's been in existence for a number of decades now, and it will give you the support, the structure, and the connection for not just your lifestyle, but for self-management for living with arthritis as well. And you'll find all the details on the Arthritis Ireland website. If you wanted something to read, there's a link here to our book that was put together by the team at University Hospital Waterford, and it's specifically for patients living with arthritis, and it covers the 6 pillars and a little bit more detail than what we've gone into tonight. And as I say, you can find the link there. You can dip in and out of it and see how you get on with it. So just to conclude, ladies, it is really important to invest in our health. It's never too late to start, and any investment is better than no investment, however small it is. And it's okay, because it's really important to invest in our health, not just for now, but for the future. So yeah, we might be tempted for the expensive handbag, but it's probably wiser maybe to think about maybe investing in our own health instead. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that, Una. That was absolutely fantastic. I have to say, you've made that all sound very straightforward, and you really broke it down into steps that I think are really manageable. So thanks so much for doing that. It was really, really interesting. I'm sure everybody was hanging on to your every word there. So I just have a couple of questions for you. One thing I suppose a lot of people might be wondering is, do you need to approach all of the 6 pillars in one go? Or would you recommend taking them bit by bit? I mean, they are all connected in some way. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Absolutely not. Don't try 6 pillars in one go. Now, hopefully none of us have 6 pillars that we want to tackle. Sit down and think about what is the priority and what is going to be the most meaningful change for you. So what's important to you? So, or what's bothering you the most, or where you think, and also, I suppose it's important when it comes to self-management, think about your confidence level. Because there's no point picking something that you think, I'm not really confident in making that change, and maybe I need to work on some of the other pillars that I might have a little bit more confidence. And that's an easy thing to do. Rate yourself on 10 to 0. 10 being I'm very confident, not, God, I have no hope. And if you're somewhere in the middle and maybe edging towards 6 or 7, pick that one if you feel. And then maybe think about what resources you have on board yourself at the moment, and what resources you might need to get there. So maybe 1 or 2, and set them as a priority, maybe 2, and then build on those, and then move on to some of the other pillars. But certainly, no, we wouldn't expect anybody to go tackling the 6 pillars all in one go.
Great. Thank you for that, Una. And actually, just one of the things that I always remember you talking about is lifestyle medicine as well. And I think this is really important, because obviously we're talking about arthritis tonight as well, as much as women's health. But I know you've always said as well, this is really important in terms of ensuring that you don't develop any further chronic conditions. And I think that's really key as well, because you may live with arthritis and you're managing that, and this will help you, but it'll also prevent developing the further chronic conditions, which is fantastic, really. So
Yeah. We don't want to see patients who have to live with a chronic disease like arthritis, then, have to develop type 2 diabetes or hypertension and things like, high blood pressure and things like that, because that just means more medications and more challenges for people's health. So yeah, and sometimes the smallest little change, can reverse things like cholesterol, can reverse things like high blood pressure, and they're certainly worth investing for the long term. Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the things as well, Una, is how, like, what can women do to make sure that self-care is a priority? Because I do think you touched on it quite a bit in the presentation, and that women take on a lot of different roles at different life stages, and that becomes a really big factor in women's health, really, because they don't prioritize themselves. So how do you prioritize yourself as a woman when you are busy, and is it about breaking it down into simple steps and just being like, not having that guilt? I think that's where it tends to creep in, really, isn't it? The guilt.
Yeah. And I think like going back to looking at ourselves first and getting over the fact that it's okay to prioritize our health. Because I see a lot of ladies in their 50s now who have not put the spotlight on their health because they've been so busy with other parts of life. But we have to just kind of change our mindset a little bit. And we're not being super what will I say, self-centered to say I'm going to go for a walk for 20 minutes on my own when you've just had no time on your own all day, because you'll be the better mom when you come back, because you'll have had that bit of time on your own. And I think once people get used to you doing something for yourself and thinking, okay, she's doing that, it becomes second nature to the family, and it's okay. But I think what's really important is to give yourself permission to do that and not feel guilty. Guilty is an awful emotion. It has no place in life, really, I think. But giving yourself permission to say, okay, I'm going to do this. It's fine if I go now 2 nights a week to set dancing, good. I'm not going to do something else. That's okay. That's what I would say.
Yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you're right. Absolutely, Una. I think it's an issue that definitely that women struggle with, but they definitely need to prioritize their own health as well as everybody else's around them.
Yes. Yeah.
So just a question here. Every Monday I start a new health regime, and I'm determined to change my diet and incorporate more exercise. By Wednesday, I find I'm back to my old routine and habits. And how do I overcome this block? This sounds so familiar to me, Una, to be honest with you. I'm sure we're all, Monday morning is the new dawn every week.
Yeah.
So is it habit stacking or?
Exactly. So stop thinking about, I'm going to change my diet. That's the first thing. I never use the word diet. Just think about what I'm eating. Rather than a diet. That's the worst thing to call it. Just take a little bit of stock and think about, I'm not going to eat healthy. I'm just going to be a little bit more focused on what I'm eating and what's on my plate. So if you start by saying, God, I'm only eating maybe a banana twice a week, that's probably not great. Go back to your food pyramid and say, okay, where am I having something sweet that I can replace more fruit in? So if you're having a cup of tea and 2 chocolate digestives, maybe say, okay, I'll get rid of the chocolate digestives. If they're not in the house, I don't want to eat them. And I'll replace that with a bowl of berries, things like that. And then once you get rid of a dessert and you have a nice, berries or your nuts or your seeds, you won't miss it. You won't miss it. And then it becomes but it does, like if you think about it, when we were young and children, we were given our habits for life. So it's very hard to go back. And I would say stop thinking, oh, I'll get as far as Wednesday, and set them as really small, realistic changes. I don't even particularly like the word goals, because goals sounds like it's really massive. Changes, little changes that I'm going to make that are important for me. And it's the same with exercise. One of the things, I'm not an exerciser, but now I go walking every night. And you know what I do? I don't think about my walking. I go for my gratitude walk. I go down the road, I empty out my tank, I come back, I don't feel like I've walked. And if I don't walk, I really miss it, because I've decompressed and I've stressed, got my day out. But I don't think of it as exercise anymore.
Yeah.
So it's about changing the mindset and habit stacking and all those little things that we talked about.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's really good to hear as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another question here about sleep. If I'm a poor sleeper, is it better for me to take power naps during the day? I think that's something a lot of people wonder about, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. A little power nap is okay,
Mm-hmm.
but set your clock for maybe only about half an hour, 40 minutes the most, and try not to do it after 2 o'clock, because then it'll really upset your circadian rhythm and then you'll be out of sync. So, and probably for women, listen to women, particularly where they tend to slump and really want to have a nap, is when all the chores are done. You've sat down, you might watch a bit of mindless television, and the next thing you can feel yourself go, you can feel the sleep, the bad, worst thing to do, because then it'll upset your sleep and then it'll take much longer to get into a deeper sleep. So as soon as you feel tired, and the other thing is as well, don't go to bed just to escape from children or hubbies. You need to go to bed when you're tired, and you need to get into bed because your bed is for sleeping. It's not for, escaping or relaxing or chilling. It's for sleeping. So when you go into your bed, you go to bed to sleep. So that's the other thing. So your mind knows. It's a bit like in COVID, everybody stayed in their pajamas. Like I hate, children should be out of their pajamas, same ways we shouldn't be in our pajamas during the day, so that our body knows it's time. We're up, we're washed, we're dressed, we're ready to go. Same ways, you don't put your jammies on when you come home from work at 6 o'clock. It's a bad, your mind already thinks I should be going to bed. You put your jammies on when you're getting into bed.
Okay, good advice. Very, very good advice, Una.
Look at Martina's face.
I'm sure Martina never puts her pajamas on after a day's work.
Never, ever.
Just one final question here. So would you say it's never too late to start exercising? I've had 2 knee replacements and I'm on a long waiting list for a hip replacement. Do I just need to work through the pain to do the exercise?
It's difficult. It's a difficult one. That's a lot. You need to acknowledge that that's a lot you've been through. It is never too late. Any type of exercise, even if it's chair exercise, that's exercise, that's movement. So look at something that might work for you, even if it's just chair yoga or chair exercise. That is better than nothing. So no, I would say it's never too late to start exercising, and do it within your own capabilities.
Absolutely. And I think what you said earlier as well, Una, about it being more about movement than exercise. So movement and chair exercises, like you say, or even, I know we, in some of our local activities, they have aqua aerobics.
Yeah.
And that can be really helpful if you are suffering with a lot of pain on your joints in particular, I think.
Yeah. Or even when you're sitting in the evening and you think, you're watching your soaps or whatever, get yourself 2 tins of beans and just do a few stretches. Something simple as that. That's movement. As I said earlier, any movement is better than no movement. And when I see patients, if they've done nothing 2 weeks ago and 2 weeks later, they're doing a 10-minute walk around the block 3 nights a week, that's okay. It was better than what they were doing 2 weeks ago, but it's just maintaining it and then just building on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. I think, I suppose what's really reassuring to hear is that it's so practical and so easy to break it down. And just to remind people as well that the booklet Una referred to, Living Your Best Life, is on our website, arthrititsireland.ie. And we also have a whole section on lifestyle medicine, which is really helpful and breaks it down as well. And you can watch this recording back, because I'm sure you picked up lots of different tips and things from Una, but you can watch this back on our YouTube channel. It'll be up there probably early next week, and there'll be a recording sent to everybody who registered for the webinar as well. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Una, before we finish up? Or
no, just look after yourselves, ladies. Invest in your health. It's very important.
Yeah, very good, very important. I just want to say thanks again, Una, for joining us tonight. It was absolutely fantastic to have you here with your expertise.
My pleasure.
I never tire of hearing you break this down, so it's great. And we also have a podcast that Una did last year with us, our Inflammation Nation podcast on lifestyle medicine, and she did it with Dr. Kate McCann. That's also a great listen as well if anyone wants to get more information. And I just want to thank our sponsor again, UCB, for their support, and for everybody who joined us this evening. and for all your contributions, and for listening in. And
Thanks,
for anyone,
everybody. And
just for
thanks,
all
Una.
four,
It
well
was
done.
great.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Sorry.
ladies.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much, everybody. Take
Thanks,
care.
everybody.
Thanks a
Bye-bye.
lot.
Bye.
Bye.